Alright, welcome back ladies and gentlemen. This is Luke from Guild Umbra again. And in this video we will be talking about build 2, a little bit different build from the first one I did. Um, Let me preface everything that I'm going to say after this point is that with with the Esper, okay, you have so many options that I could literally make tons of builds. But it varies so much. It's hard to really say, well, this is a good build, this is a good build, this is a good build. In every situation, there's a lot of flexibility there. There's good abilities that synergize with other abilities quite well. But for the most part, for this video, I will go with a bit more melee range rather than super long ranged, stationary and whatnot. It's just another cool ability. It's actually quite useful in PvP with some different variations too added to it. But anyhow, let's dive right into the abilities. The first ability is Psychic Frenzy. This is the one I was talking about. It's very mobile. It's a very small telegraph that it spawns or conjures 3 spectral blades. And it's like a multi-tap ability. Like the first one, the first time you hit the button, whatever you have binded to that ability, the first blade lands for you. Now, if you don't hit that first blade, you do not get a side point for it. Excuse me. So basically, you have, when you hit the ability, you have 1 blade lands. If you don't land that ability, of course, you don't get the side point. However, you have 2 more chances to hit that same button to hit 2 more times. So anyway, the idea behind the reasoning I took this ability is because when you think about it, the amount of damage is a little bit lower, but than that of telekinetic strike. However, you have 2 more chances. So technically, if you're good enough at landing telegraphs on enemies, you would do more damage with Psychic Frenzy than you would telekinetic strike. There's a lot of pros and cons to it. Yeah, you would be doing more damage, but the consequence is you're in melee range, so they can hit you too. So, think about that when, before you just dive into this ability, or excuse me, this build. Next ability is Mind Burst. And let me state this too, because I did not do it in my last video, that this is a finisher. However, it's like a conal telegraph. Whereas another finisher called Telekinetic Storm does kind of like like say I casted it on a guy that was in front of me, and he chose to move around, try to move out of it or something like that. It would follow him wherever he went, and it would do like damage over time, lasting for 7 seconds, doing damage every 1 second. So 7 ticks of damage on the enemy. So if you know you're going to be in an AoE situation where you have multiple mobs, this would, yes, hit all of them, but this one would also hit all of them. So you kind of have choices here. That's kind of what I was talking about at the start of the video, of what you want to use. But anyway, for this simple purposes, I went with Mind Burst again. Next ability is Concentrated Blades. I think I talked about this, but real quick, you start with 2 ability charges, and the blades spawn, and then there's some ramp up time before it actually hits the target. And until it hits the target, you don't get a side point. So a little bit of delay of time there. Next one is Haunt. It's a debuff magic resistance to foes, up to 5 foes, and lasts for 10 seconds. Next one is Spectral Swarm, excuse me. You manifest 3 phantoms and they attack the target. doing magic damage every 1.25 seconds for 10 seconds. Generates 1 psi point. I think it used to generate more than one too, so that's pretty cool. Next ability is Bolster. It's a heal over time, but the purpose we take, or the reasoning that we take this, is to generate more psi points. So pretty sweet. Sorry, I got a cold. Anyway, next ability I chose is Crush. It's a hard CC, knocks him down, and it destroys 1 interrupt armor. And the next one is called Shockwave, destroys 1 interrupt armor. So again, as I stated in the last video, you can switch them out for a CC break, a movement ability, a incapacitate, which is like a subdue, knocks the weapon from the enemy out. It's pretty funny in PvP to like knock their weapon loose and then watch them like still try to hit you, but they can't. So it's pretty hilarious. But it lasts for 4 seconds. So anyway, other abilities: meditate, regenerates focus and health every 0.5 seconds for 5 seconds. Really not a huge damage ability. Out of all the abilities I've talked about already, I would definitely not take that one if I'm a damage Esper. Next one, this would provide, is called Catharsis. I can never say that. Basically, it cleanses 2 debuffs from yourself and 5 allies. It's a conal telegraph, and it can be kind of hard to land. So keep that in mind if you do take it, to have your grouped up members kind of stay in front of you, so you can debuff. But as a damage, you don't really usually take that. Restraint. Again, I talked about this in the last video, but you know, if you're in groups or adventures or dungeons, any type of content where you're in a group where a tank has to tank something, I would not take this. Yes, it does damage, but the issue is with this ability is okay. Let's say, for example, the tank wants to move the mob away from a patrol mob that's coming towards you. Well, he can't do that if you got this ability on him, because he's rooted. The enemy is. So keep that in mind. Geist is, you know, basically a tanking mob for you that you conjure. Again, like my last video, I wouldn't suggest using this, even though it does do magic damage or whatever. But the issue with it is it generates 400% threat while it's out. So you may not want to have that out, because you kind of piss off the tanks. And like I said, the last videos, tanking can be strenuous, you know, and kind of piss off the tank a lot, and they're always pissed off anyway. Don't need to give them another reason. So anyhow, the next ability that I would suggest, that I didn't suggest in the last video, would be Phantasmal Armor. And the reason I suggest this is because for the majority of your time, even while leveling, you will be in melee range. So this helps kind of buffer the amount of the fact that you have light armor and you take more damage than any other class other than light armor users. So, you know, this ability is not a bad idea either. If you don't need 2 CCs on your bar, why not take it? You know what I mean? So anyway, we'll talk about the ants real quick. You know, I didn't really change a whole lot in the amp tree from the last build, so I won't talk about it too much. For those who do not know, basically from level 6 to level 50, you get amp points each level. And this is where you spend them. You know, you spend them, you know, in tier 1s to get to your tier 2s. And until you spend enough points in your tier 1, you can't get to tier 2. Same deal with tier 3. You cannot get to tier 3 of the tree until you've spent enough amp points rather, in tier 2. So keep that in mind. I think at max level you get 45 amp points. So as you can see here, we're using WS base. So they factor in the fact that you have max amp points in building these builds. So in other words, in order for the player to get 10 more amp points, they have to do dailies, they have to do enough dailies to the point where they have enough Elder Gems to buy the remaining 10 amp points. So just wanted to throw that out there, FYI. But basically, the only changes I did from last build was I took out Wreckful. I got to thinking about it after I did my first build, and I don't really honestly think it's as useful as it could be. So I took that out and instead added CC Resilience and Dash Regen. But basically every other amp is the same as last build. Okay, so yeah, these are kind of the way to implement the most damage as a DPS Esper, while also adding a little bit of mobility and cooldown reduction to your skills. So I'm not going to talk about too much in the amp tree here, because like I stated, there's not a whole lot of difference between this build and the amp tree, at least. But again, I think that pretty much covers. I think the only thing I didn't cover was the tier points, so I'll go over that real quick. Basically, tier points are, you have a base damage for that ability. As you level, you get more options to tier up those abilities to basically, in this case, allow you to do more damage and allow your abilities to have special effects, which are the tier 4s and the tier 8s. Now keep in mind that you have to level up for a while to get to the point where you can use tier 4s and tier 8s. So those might not be available for you for a while. But anyway, took tier 4 Mind Burst. It deals 10% more damage over 4 seconds. So whenever I use this ability, whatever amount of damage it did, 10% of that damage gets transferred into a dot on that same person. So, and it takes over for 4 seconds, basically. The tier 8 for Mind Burst. It's basically a 5 side point consumer. Grants him power, which is increases critical chance by 15% for 7.5 seconds. This is a difference that I made from the last build. I think I took tier 4 in the last build. But the tier 4 for concentrated blades decreases the delay by 3.4 seconds. Basically, instead of having that long ramp up time before the blades hit the target and you get side points, this makes it pump it out a little quicker. A lot quicker, actually. Tier 8, this increases the charge counter from 2 to 3. So I kind of felt like that was a good idea. So anyway, the next one, tier 4 Psychic Frenzy. The blade damage that you do, 25% of that damage heals you. So it's like lifesteal. And since this does so much more damage than, well, not a whole lot more, but a bit more damage than Telekinetic Strike, provided you can land your telegraphs, it's another way of healing you. So, you don't have to depend on those healers that are AFK smoking or baking a cake or, using the bathroom. Not really. But anyway, that's the reason I took tier 4. Tier 4 Spectral Swarm. Your Phantoms gain 12% lifesteal, and that health is transferred to you, and the health is returned unmitigated. So basically, what you have is another way to generate health for yourself, so you don't have to rely on healers as much. And that does it for the tiers explanation, the abilities I chose, the amps I chose. So that will be the end of this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. It's like I said, one of the cool things about WildStar, and I've stated this in other videos, is that there's no static build. There's no, if you don't roll this build, you're gonna suck. Basically, you can play around with your abilities on your limited action setup here, and generate several types of builds that are viable, that help your group. For example, in this particular build, like I was talking about earlier, I've seen in raids where a certain guy named, I think it's Caleb, if you're eugenic, shout out to Caleb. He uses this sometimes as a way to debuff the opponents, because as you see here, it pierces a certain amount of armor, the tier 4 does, but then it also applies weaken. Deflect chances reduced by the foe by 2%, stacks 4 times. So you reduce the chances that the opponent has to deflect your attacks. Pretty sweet. And that's for everyone who attacks that target. So, it's kind of a debuff build that they run in raids sometimes. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video, and we'll see you next time. I think we'll be covering the heals next time I pop in. It might be a little while though. I'm going to check the servers. They had some issues, and maybe see if it has come back up and is fixed. So anyway, take care. Have a good